Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, At Home with Willowberry. Or if you're new, welcome. But where have you been? I'm so happy to see you here. My name is Valerie, and in today's video, we're doing a little bit of everything. We check in on all my little fur babies, we work on the renovations here in our 50-year-old mobile home fixer-upper, and I make a delicious dinner for my family. It's a full day of mobile home living, so if you're interested in what we've been up to, then I hope you'll stick around and enjoy the video. How are you all doing today? I sure hope you're feeling happy, loved, and blessed wherever you're watching from in this big old world of ours. We're doing wonderful. We're all happy and healthy, so there's really nothing to complain about. We're just living life here on our little homestead up in the Virginia mountains. Today we are planning to rebuild the wall that we recently tore down between the living room and bedroom. But first we need to pull down a section of ceiling where we plan to build the wall, and we need to remove the old insulation that's up in the ceiling in order to expose the rafter. Later, Tim will be reinforcing the rafter with 2x4 boards in order to support the new wall. It's going to be a full day of mobile home renovations and mobile home living. So if you're ready, then let's just get right into the video. thinking that we were through with the demolition, but I had completely forgot all about the ceiling. We're just removing a small section today, but eventually the whole thing will need to come down, and what a mess that's going to be. Well, alright, we have a bit more demolition to do today, and then we'll be ready to start rebuilding the wall. Well, y'all, we finished with the demolition part of the project for today, but before we begin reinforcing the rafter, I need to get dinner in the oven. I'm going to be making barbecue-style pork ribs for dinner tonight, and according to the recipe, the ribs will need to cook low and slow in order for them to be tender and falling apart. So the ribs will need to cook for approximately 3 hours. So I need to go ahead and get them in the oven. For the ribs, I'm just going to season them with salt and pepper, and then I'll cover them with aluminum foil and bake them in the oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours to begin with. Later, after the 2 hours, I'll then remove the ribs from the oven and smother them with barbecue sauce, and then back into the oven they'll go for 1 more hour. Alright, well, let's get dinner in the oven. Alright, y'all, dinner is in the oven, so now it's time to get back to work. Tim is going to be attaching a 2x4 board to the existing rafter in order to make it more sturdy, so that way the wall will have something strong to attach to. Well, y'all, it's been 2 hours, so I need to pull the ribs out of the oven and cover them with barbecue sauce. Tim is still working on reinforcing the ceiling rafter, but it's time to make dinner, so we'll have to catch up with him later after we eat in order to build the new wall. After I smother the ribs with barbecue sauce, I'll then put them back in the oven uncovered, and I'll also lower the temperature to 275 degrees Fahrenheit. After 1 hour, the ribs should be tender, juicy, and falling apart. While the ribs finish baking, I'll get the sweet potatoes ready for the oven. We're having barbecue ribs, roasted sweet potatoes, and buttered corn. Alright, well, let's make dinner. recently had a question in my comments section asking us if we had it to do all over again, would we still have purchased this old mobile home to renovate, or would we have just bought a new mobile home instead? Well, I thought I'd take a minute to try and answer that question. I want to be completely honest with y'all. I've had many moments of regret since buying this fixer-upper, especially when we've been in the thick of it all. We had always considered building a home from the ground up, but we knew we couldn't afford to do that, and we also couldn't afford a brand new mobile home either. When we bought this mobile home, we didn't realize just how much work we were going to have to do to make it like new again, which has been a bit overwhelming at times. This mobile home is taking a long time to renovate, but that's only because we just don't have a lot of time to dedicate to renovating. Between caring for Granny, raising the boys, looking after our animals, and just living life, well, we can go several days without working on the mobile home. But when we're able to renovate and work on the home and we're seeing progress, well, that's when I'm most excited about living here. And to be honest, I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. We have a unique opportunity to make this home our own. By the time we finish renovating this mobile home, it would be like a completely brand new home, which kind of fulfills our dream of building our own home. I hope that makes sense. We didn't necessarily buy this property for the mobile home. We bought it for the location, the land, and the view, and not to mention the price was within our budget. So all that to say, yes, we would do this all over again. The only thing I wish we could do different was spend more time renovating. There's just not enough hours in the day. Well, y'all, the potatoes are almost ready for the oven. I just need to coat them in olive oil and season them with salt and brown sugar. They'll bake in a 425-degree oven for about 30 minutes, but I'll need to wait for the ribs to come out of the oven first. The ribs are cooking at a low temp, and the potatoes will need to roast at a much higher temperature. So as soon as the ribs are ready, I'll put the potatoes in the oven. The ribs are almost ready. They just need a little more barbecue sauce and a few more minutes in the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up my mess, and then I'm going to take a little break and go visit with Milo for a little bit. He's such a sweet kitty. Dinner is ready, y'all, and man, it smells delicious. I can't wait to dig in. Tim and I will head out to the front porch to enjoy our dinner, and then we'll get back to work. Tim promised we would frame the wall before the day is done, and that's exciting, because that means we are one step closer to having a brand new bedroom. All right, well, it's time to go eat dinner. Dinner was very delicious, and it was nice to take a little break, but now it's time to get back to work. It's time to build a wall. that sweet Willowberry. She's so cute in her bow. Looks like she needs a little attention, and I'm pretty sure Max will be close behind her. They've been good all day, but they're not used to us working late in the evening. This is usually their playtime, so after a few pets and cuddles, we'll get back to work. I feel so blessed to have a husband who knows how to renovate a home. If it wasn't for him having the knowledge that he does, then I don't know what we would do. He gives all the credit to his dad. His dad was very knowledgeable when it came to renovating a home, and he passed that down to Tim. And now Tim is getting the chance to pass that knowledge on to his own boys. I feel so bad for Tim. He's had a long day. The brakes locked up on his truck about a week ago, and so he wasn't able to go buy the lumber he needed to build the wall until this morning. He was finally able to fix his brakes just last night, so he got up early this morning to head out to the Home Depot to buy the lumber, and then he came home and got straight to work. He's tired, but he really wants to get the wall built, so he's trying to push through to get it done. He really is the best, y'all, that's for sure. The wall is really coming together, y'all. We actually pushed the wall out about 16 inches in order to make the room a bit bigger, and the doorway used to be 24 inches wide, but the new door is going to be 30 inches wide, which will make a huge difference in the long run. Alright, y'all, let's see how far we can get before we're ready to call it a night. It's getting late and Tim is exhausted. We may have to frame the door out on another day, but that's okay. Tim has worked hard all day and he's making great progress. Well, y'all, it's starting to look like a wall to me, and that makes me very happy. Today it's a wall, but before we know it, it will be a brand new bedroom. Once he finishes the wall, then we'll move on to the next project, which will be to tear down the ceiling and reinforce all the rafters. And that's going to be a big old project, let me tell you. Alright, well he has one more 2x4 to install and then he's ready to call it a night. But make sure you stick around till the end because I have a beautiful sunset to share with you. Well, y'all, I think we're ready to call it a night. Tim has worked hard all day and he's ready to hit the hay, so I guess that's about it for another video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I can't wait to talk to you again real soon. I hope you all have a great week. Bye, y'all.